It's really hard, I think, for a lot of people out there to think that suicide could possibly be divine timing. Is it always their time when they choose to take their own life?
In Kenny's mind, that's what he needed. And my belief, he did not reach out for help. He was a typical guy. I don't need help. I'm going to do it myself. But in some of his journals, there's indications that he said, I wonder if I should be on some kind of medication because my highs are so high and my lows were so low. But he never did seek that help. If he did reach out to me and ask for help, and he still chose suicide, who am I, even as his mom, to ask him or even want him to be here so miserably?
Hello, everyone. I am Deepika Sandhu, the CEO of Soul Sparks Press, and I am so excited today to be in conversation with an absolutely magnificent, beautiful soul talking about a difficult subject that so many of us experience, grief. Today I have with me Debbie Rosenfelt. Hello, Debbie.
Hello, Deepika.
Grief is such a big topic in our lives, one we have traditionally approached in only one way, that it has to be sad and heavy and hard. And in your upcoming book, Grief or Gain, you really explore whether or not there's something to gain from death and dying, which is a very provocative thought because so many of us think of it as only a loss.
Exactly. And well, it's with loss and grief and any kind of loss or grief. But yes, death is that taboo topic and subject. But it's like when it's present in your life, you can't ignore it. And when it hits you pretty deep, in my case, I lost my son, Ken, to suicide. It hit really deep, shocking. And I knew there was something inside of me that knew that I had to do it differently. I couldn't run from my feelings. I just had to allow them. I have my other son, Brian, and my husband, Todd. So it was not just my journey, but yes, my own journey, because we all handle grief and loss differently.
And losing your own son, Kenny, who I feel like I know now from being with you every week and talking about your book, and losing him to suicide, it is hard to think for most people that a mom would be able to see some gain in that. But yet, even in that grief, there are things that you really did learn. Can you share some of those with us?
Yeah. So first off, Kenny was a great guy. And so I see how loving and caring he was. And so there was a lot of processing going on when that came through. And the first part was just to allow it was, but there's no other way I could have done it. And I knew that. I mean, even day one, I pulled out my gratitude journal and wrote how grateful I was for the 30 years I had with Kenny. But all those questions were going through my head of what happened? Why? What's going on? And we were very blessed with letters from Kenny. That was Kenny's way of caring for us, making sure that we're going to be okay. He was making sure that he was going to be okay. So there was some really deep wisdom. There was some really deep processing going on, but it wasn't just because of one thing, or it's just like what showed up day after day, and I had to trust the process. So the wisdom that came through happened over years. It's not just one or two things. It's like, how was I going to see it? And the first one was, I can't run from my feelings, and I had to allow them. And at that time, I was working in corporate America as a CFO. How do you do that and process your grief?
How do you allow grief in the workplace?
Exactly. And there were days that I would literally have to shut the door because I would just be in tears. But going to work was also my way of getting me out of being in grief 24/7. But the reality is I was still in grief, but it gave me a little bit of feeling of normality to be able to have something to count on. So even getting up in the morning, going to work out with my trainer, that was my normal before. So if you could just insert a little bit of normalcy back into your life, that helps ground you. But The bottom line is it's all an internal work.
And it's a journey for you as a mom also to navigate this loss, to feel it and to experience it. And working for you was not bypassing the emotion. I think it was giving you a little bit of that normalcy and that escape for a bit, enough so that when you were back at home with your thoughts of Kenny, that you could really flow through them.
And by all means, I shifted my schedule. So I told the CEO at the time, I said, I'm going down to 4 days a week and I will be here from 10 to 4. When I was normally there 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And he said, do what you have to do. And so I created boundaries. So that was also part of my process. I hadn't created boundaries before. And so it's like when we go through the really tough times, things pop up, new skills pop up, or new things pop up saying, this is what I need to do. There were times that my body would literally shut down because I would say, well, I want to go do something. No, you just need to sit down and do something brain dead, like watch TV, because there was so much going on inside of me. And our body knows before our mind does. So I just had to listen and allow whatever show up.
One thing you talk about in the book is divine timing. And it's really hard, I think, for a lot of people out there to think that suicide could possibly be divine timing too. We accept it maybe when we think of someone who's old age and passes away. We say, oh, it was their time. Is it always their time when they choose to take their own life?
In Kenny's mind, that's what he needed. And my belief, he did not reach out for help. Even though Kenny was gay, he was a typical guy. I don't need help. I'm going to do it myself. But in some of his journals, there's indications that he said, I wonder if I should be on some kind of medication because my highs are so high and my lows were so low. But he never did seek that help. But in Kenny's mind, he had the experience of checking off all the boxes, and that wasn't doing it for him. And so even though he did, or if he did reach out to me and ask for help, and he still chose suicide, who am I, even as his mom, to ask him or even want him to be here so miserably? I would never want him to be miserable, but I would have certainly done whatever I could to have supported him. But I'm grateful for really not knowing. I get that that was his choice. So it wasn't about me.
And it being his choice is almost in some ways a little freeing for him too as he departed. And so that's why I just love in the book when you talk about divine timing. And I think everybody out there is going to love this because it just gives us something so much deeper to think about. And it really is soul sparking. Could this be a different way? Could this mean something different than what we've allowed it to mean for ourselves?
He was tired of living in a box. And he said, I need to do it differently because what I'm doing isn't working. And it's almost like that's the journey that I have been on, is I need to do it differently. And I think of Kenny all the time, but I also believe we have or had a soul contract. We can't make this stuff up. Everything that has shown up in my life is because of Kenny, including this book. Just sharing how it all came together was just me sharing stories about Kenny to Nakia, and Nakia says, Debbie, you need to talk to Deepika. You're going to write a book.
And then you went on from there, from that experience with Kenny and Kenny's passing, to become a chaplain and to help other people through their process of grieving and death. I mean, a lot of people would want to run from anything related to death and dying after going through something like you went through. And you were like, no, I want to go in there and be there in these moments with other people.
Like you said, divine timing. God was putting people in my life all throughout my time of process. So even like when I was working in 2008, I traveled back and forth to San Diego once a month. And my first time back to San Diego since Kenny's died, so this was in April of 2009, the plane was waiting to depart for this one woman to come in. And it just so happened she was sitting next to me. And she just lost her grandfather. And I just sat there and we talked about her grandfather. I asked her to share with me stories about her grandfather. So she really lit up because she could share stories. And so those things were happening. Well, it just so happened this was in 2018 that you're speaking about how it came to be. Again, divine timing. My neighbor, unfortunately, his wife died. It was a Sunday, 11 a.m. in the morning. I just came home from church and I'm hearing the medic car coming closer and closer and stopping right in front of my neighbor's house. And I said, "Oh my God, I got to go over there and help." And I thought, nope, you'll know if you need to go. Not even 10 seconds later, I heard this blood curdling scream. I ran over there and they just pronounced his wife had died. Well, Peggy was a young woman. She was 65, no signs of anything. And the night before they were at an event, I just held him. He was on the floor screaming, crying, and I just held him. And at that time, what occurs is fire calls police. Police come to do an investigation. And also in my community, a chaplain came and to serve Eric as well as to help the police officer with the investigation. And I'm going, wow, I would have loved to have had a chaplain when we were notified about Kenny's death. I was there helping making sure that Eric got some food. And I called his sister for him to let her know and ask her to come up. And so in the meantime, Dale, that was the chaplain at the time, asked Eric if, he would like to pray. And Eric said, yeah, I would really like that. So I got to sit down with Dale and Eric to pray with my neighbor, which that's something that you just don't do. And the medical examiner's was an unexpected. So the medical examiner comes out, makes a decision to come out so they can do their investigation. And so I could tell it was my time to leave. So as I was walking down the stairs to go home, because I just lived across the street, I looked up at the sky and I said, gee, I wonder what it takes to become a chaplain. Because what I realized, what I was doing for Eric was the same thing that the chaplain was doing. And people don't necessarily want to pray or ask for prayer, but we're there to provide comfort on the worst day of somebody's life, like help them find a funeral home or whatever is needed in that moment. And so Dale and I exchanged phone numbers, and that's history. I went through all the training and shadowed with other fellow chaplains. And in May, I went through official training. In July of 2019, I was officially a chaplain.
And what a beautiful way that you were able to serve as a chaplain and now helping leaders navigate loss. You've been a CFO yourself of multiple companies, and now being able to help leaders in navigating the challenges that they're dealing with to continue to help them lead and be effective in their roles while processing all that they may be going through. I mean, that is also just a beautiful, another way that you're serving and another way that you're continuing to help people move through all this grief.
It's really holding space, a safe space. It's almost like being a confidant of just allowing them to process whatever they're to process. So then they have that safe space. So then when they step out, they can go back in their leadership role. It's still impacting them, but then they have someone to help them focus on what they can so they know that they can move through and work through their loss. And with their process, they're great in a safe environment. And it just comes down to it's an inside job because everything is internal. And we look outside to ourselves and it's not.
I just love all you have been able to do and consider, and the way you have brought these beautiful insights about grief. It's personal for me. I lost my dad 20 years ago this month. You and I have talked about this before, and your book, your story, your words, Kenny, I think all of it has just helped me to move through a lot of probably what I needed to go through 20 years ago and held on to.
That's called divine timing, isn't it?
We were meant to be together. I love that. Thank you so much, Debbie, for speaking with us today. We are so excited about your book, Grief or Gain, and we're going to really change the language with your book on death, dying, and how we choose to experience it. So thank you so much. And if you want to bring your soul sparking story to life just like Debbie did, you can do so here at Soul Sparks Press.